might have some questions, and some of the explanation I give you in the following slides might answer those naturally. And when we do demos, some more of them would be answered. And if we have any more questions, we will definitely be taking them towards the end of this uh, demo, and we will go through them. Um, so yeah, I'll start. Prediction Builder, it is the custom AI for admins, as Salesforce puts it, and uh, it is a premium service. That means you can, as of today, in your org, have this implemented without any cost. There are caveats to that. We will get to do that in the later slides, but yes, you can start using it without any license considerations or having to put in any having to put any financial involvement, and start using it and leveraging AI in your daily processes. So when we talk about AI and predictions, the one of the things that comes into our mind is Doctor Strange. You know, you can look into the future and make predictions that are relevant to you. But you know, as things goes, we are not in the Marvel universe, and we don't have Doctor Strange just hanging around in our offices to help us with stuff we want to get done. And that's where we come to Prediction Builder to get that predictive power into our hands. And also, this is not a straightaway analogy, because here what is happening is we are looking into the future, which is a very difficult thing in our universe, basically. So what we do is we look into the past. We look at the past data that we have captured over time, and then we use signals from that data, or things that we have learned from that data, to inform our decisions, to get insights into what will happen or what is most likely to happen. And that's where we come into Einstein Prediction Builder. It can learn from past data. It is AI. It is artificial intelligence. And when we say intelligence, I mean, you can say that, yeah, I mean, Prabhat, you're telling me that it is intelligent, it is artificial intelligent, it is powered by supercomputers, huge computing powers and things like that. So why necessarily are we making that distinction between, numeric predictions and binary predictions? Isn't the AI smart enough to understand what kind of data has been exposed to it, and take it from there and just do its thing and give us the predictions? But in reality, that is not just the case, because AI is just a bunch of statistical techniques that are being applied to the data to get insights. And that's where we need to be very mindful about what we are doing with the models and what kind of data that we are feeding to the model and things like that. So that's where we need to do our part of the homework and be aware of what is happening behind the scenes, to fruitfully use this feature and have some impact from the output that we get out of the feature. So basically, with Prediction Builder, there are two types of data that the prediction builder can learn on and predict. One is numeric predictions and one is binary predictions. So numeric prediction is pretty simple. It's just a continuous variable. It's a number. It's something that is is not yes or no, or a class. Basically, it can be any number. So it's like the amount of a deal, or the time, or things that can be represented by a number. And on the flip side, we have binary predictions that takes in boolean values, basically yes or no questions. Will it happen, will not happen, will it be a defaulter, will he not be a defaulter, things like that. So you can see here in the slide that there are a few example problems that these kind of predictions can help us solve. And when we so the reason why we make this distinction between numeric prediction and binary prediction is because the underlying algorithm that actually processes the data and uh, picks up the signal is quite different. So for numeric prediction, we use a technique called linear regression, and for binary prediction we use a technique called logistic regression. And Well, these are the two that we have out of the box with Prediction Builder. There are obviously there are more more algorithms out there in the field, data science field, which are very nuanced and which are very specific to different data types. But logistic and linear regression do very well. They have been tested and used across many verticals and many industries, and they have been deemed reliable, and these do address most of the uh, business use cases that you might come across. Obviously they would not be able to address all the use cases that you come across, but these do a good job of covering most, and that's why we are sticking to those. And also within prediction builder you can only use these type of uh, data to predict. So for numeric prediction and binary prediction, before we jump on to the nitty-gritties, I would like you to become aware. I'll take you through the basic hello world level of examples of what these things are and how these work actually, so that we are familiar with these things. I beg your pardon. So that we are familiar with these things. And uh, with linear regression, as we are aware, we take numeric data, that is continuous data, and what actually happens is uh, all of these data points that we provide to this model are plotted, and a straight line is fitted in such a way that it represents the direction of the data that we are training the model on, so that we can use that fitted line as our baseline and use that to get insights into or we can use that to extrapolate on any examples that we get in the future. So this is a very basic example. So let's say we have a training data of we are what we are trying to do is we are trying to predict how many cycles. So here the use cases, we are a cycle company. I mean, we give cycles on rent to people. You might have seen a lot of companies that doing that through apps right now. And what data we have here is what was the number of cycles that were rented, and the corresponding temperature during the day. So x is our temperature during the day, and y is the number of cycles that were rented. And yeah, so that's it. So basically, when we are training the model, usually the data that we are using to train the model is split into test and training sets. So basically you train with most of the data, but you hold out, let's say 5% or 10% or X% of that data, so that you can validate the output of the trained model basically. So here you can see, even though we had quite a, let's say around 10 rows or more rows, we kept some part of it for validation and trained it only on the data that you see in bold here. So what it basically does is it plots these values across this chart, where we have number of rentals on the y-axis and the temperature on the x-axis. And what we try to do is fit a line that passes best to these data points. And you might be aware of the equation for a straight line, y is equal to mx plus b. So here we have a function of x. Basically, we are saying that the number of cycles that are being rented out are a function of the temperature during that day, and it is directly proportional. So there we have y is equal to mx plus b. Mx is m is the slope of the line. M is error, or a constant basically, and x is our variable, which is our temperature. So what the model will do is it will fit a line through the data points that we have supplied, and we can use the slope of the line. So here the slope of the line is 1 and we have a, a baseline. This is called an intercept. So we have an intercept very much close to 40, which we can see here is 35. So we have 35 plus 1.5x. So this is the equation that we got out of our linear regression once it ran. So when I say it ran, it iterates through different possibilities and tries to find the line that best fits all of these data points. So there will be iterations, and finally we will come across equation that represents the data that we have trained the model on. Now, this is a very basic example. We have only used one variable, which is x, which is the temperature during the day. But in the real world, the applications are not that simple. There can be 10, 20, many variables that affect the outcome, and that's where it gets challenging to actually model these kind of data, and it can be manually very labor intensive to do it. That's why we offload that task to a machine that has unlimited resources and time to actually do it for us. And that's where prediction builder shines. So here we can see that we ended up with a line. We know what the intercept is, what the slope is, and we have a equation, and we can see that it has done a decent job. If we use the validation data into the equation that we have derived after linear regression, we can see that the while the output is not exactly what happened, it is pretty close. And even if we are getting that close to what actually happened, that data is usable for us, that is relevant for us. We can use that in our business with a grain of salt. Of course, we can always not rely blindly on it, but we can use it along with our decision making to augment our decision making, and determine the direction we are taking. So this is a basic example of linear regression, which takes continuous data. Now we will go into logistic regression, which is for our yes or no questions, binary predictions, right? So binary is yes or no, which is usually taken down to 1 or 0. So what happens with this is we are trying to find the line of separation. We are trying to separate the data points into yeses and nos, ones and zeros. So here what the model does, which is a different model, it tries to find a line that divides the data points so that the maximum on either side are of the same class, which is 1 and 0. Now, the previous question we took, previous example we took was having only two variables. And as I said, if we go into three variables, for example, on the left in this model, you would see this is a 3D model. It will help you understand how it actually plots that data and how it looks. So here we have used only three variables, and we can see that with three variables we are already into three dimensions. And there is not always a very clear cut separation. There can be some overlaps, and that's where we as admins can have a say on at what point do we consider it as a yes or a no. So here you can see that we have a hyperplane that divides the data points into ones and zeros. We have ones at the top, zeros at the bottom. Now imagine this is just three dimensions, so we can say three variables. Now we can obviously have 10 or 20 variables, and that's where we go into hyperplanes and things that are very hard to imagine. Yeah. And also with the increasing number of variables, the computing complexity increases, and the amount of resources required to process that data increases. So here is very simple example. Now we can take into consideration around let's say we have uh, here we have representative data of different vitals of people. Let's say we are taking into consideration what the weight of that person is, what that height of the person is, what the heart rate of that person is, and some other different examples, and trying to find out whether that person has obesity or not. Now, the data that you see here is not quite representative, because normalized and uh, to actually train the data, but it is in the same vein. You can feed whatever data that you have, and it will be automatically. Now here we can see that we have a training set and a validation set. What will happen with this is we are giving it examples of what the vitals were and what the result was. So was it a diabetic, was it not a diabetic? So in the first example we can say it was not a diabetic person or obese person. And the second one we can say that it was a positive example. So here we have negative example, here we have positive examples, and we are using that data to fit a line through the data points that we have given to this model. And It is called, so previously we had the equation of a straight line. Now this is called a sigmoid curve. So these are different types of equations that can, that can be used to fit data points. Now here we can see in the validation set that what equation that we got for this sigmoid line, it might, the output can, will not always be, well applied across our validation set or in the real life examples, because again, these are not exact science, these are just statistical models, and these depend hugely upon the data that we are using to uh, train the model on. So if we did not have enough examples that represents the data point that we are giving to test the model, then it might or might not, give you the answer that you actually wanted the model to give. But it can do a pretty good job. It can do it can go 75% or 80% depending on how you train the model. So it is not always absolutely correct. You always have to consider the business aspect of things before you take it into consideration. Now you can see in this validation example, we can see that we have these different observations we have. So here we have 3, 1, 2.8, 10, and we have plotted this along the graph. And here we can see that while this is 1 and this is 0, there is always a gray area where uh, the output is not going to be an exact 0 or exact 1. It can be between 1 and 0. And it is upon us to decide at what point do we want to consider the you know consider it as a line of separation. For example, here we have considered 50% or zero point 0.5 to be the point where we would say that, yeah, if it's above zero point 0.5, let's just consider that as a 1. And if it's below zero point 0.5, then let's consider it as 0, because you would not have a line that would be, dividing your data points exactly into ones and zeros. And that's where our consideration comes into the picture. Now how we decide, or when would we decide what would be the separation line, this is called the threshold line basically. So that depends on what accuracy you want or what recall you want the model to have, and also it depends upon the use case that you're trying to use. I mean, like, if going wrong is really expensive for you, then you might want to, just consider it as a 0. Just raise that threshold above, so that, if you're not sure about it, then you just say it's a false, rather than, saying that it is a positive example basically. So here you can see this is the terminology that we use. If it's a positive and it has been predicted as a positive, then yeah, you call it a false, true positive. However, if it was actually a negative, but you predicted it as a positive, then it becomes a false positive. And usually these are plotted into what you call a confusion matrix. You can see one of them here. So what is the actual value that you had within your validation set, and what was the value that the model predicted? And you can plot that across a confusion matrix, and that will actually help you, understand uh, how your model is performing and what kind of output your model is giving. So this in this we have once, because we have only considered 4 data points, but it does get, it increases the number once you are actually into production data. And these two are very, as I said, these two are not the only models out there, but these two are the ones that are being used in prediction builder. If you go on to Einstein Discovery, which is another product, it also has XGBoost model and random forest model, which are, tree, and they do a better job, and they are very resource intensive, but they do a better job of, you know uh, making a line that separates these positive and negative examples, as you can see here. Uh, so we will not get into that. We're just letting you know that, yeah, there are more models out there that can do a better job, but these are not into the scope of what we are doing today. So these, as you might already been aware that, yeah, there is a lot of consideration that goes into building these models, and using the data that you have to make some equations that will help you determine what the output is going to be. And it is an intersection of a lot of areas of expertise, basically data science, mathematics, linear algebra, and also business science, things like that. So you also, it involves a lot of uh, resources like processing power, and you need to have computers and things like that. So these are all the complexities that comes into the picture when you're talking about AI or models. And you don't really want to you don't really have that much time or that many resources to actually invest upon such a use case. You just want to get the insight out of your data and just use it in your business to drive outcomes. So that's where prediction builder shines, where it abstracts away all these complexities and only lets you use the output in a way that is easier for you to do. So you don't have to worry about what stack your model is based upon, the CI/CD behind it, the process behind it, how much cost is going to actually go into maintaining those, you know, uh, uh, processing or getting something on the cloud or stacks, things like that. You just want to deal with the intelligence and just give it some data, get the prediction out, end of the day. So that's where prediction builder really shines. It just gives you what you want and hides all the things that you might have to manage in a uh, real world scenario. But here everything has been pre-built for you. You just have to basically deal with the data that is interesting to you, feed that data into the model and get the output. Now, talking about license considerations, by default in your org you would have try Einstein license, which lets you build 10 models, but you can only enable one of those models. So that means, like, let's say if you have different use cases or even different approaches to solving the same business problem, you can always have different iterations of those models already built and ready to deploy, and just have one active. So let's say you have different models for different seasons or different models for different shows or things like that. You can just have them ready but only enable one. And if you really get the ROI out of it, and if you think that you're really making progress with the way the models have been working, you can always think about getting into licenses that increase those number of models that you can build and enable. So instant predictions license gives you 20 models that you can build and enable 10 at a time, and the WCRM plus, which also gives you access to discovery and other features that will help you get a prediction builder license of enabling you to have 45 models that you have already pre-built and have 35 of them active. So these are the also we have already discussed the types of data that we can learn from. So we have numeric fields, and we have formula fields and checkboxes. These are things that can store the values that we want the model to predict from. Again, the prediction builder works on objects, so everything that you have should be within an object, and it can only take one object at a time. So you cannot have multiple objects or child objects as a part of the input data. You need to have everything into one object. So as we have seen in the previous examples, every line is considered as an experiment on its own. So every record within an object will be taken as one experiment, and the model will learn from it. And prediction builder can work on all custom objects and most of the standard objects, with a few exceptions. You can definitely go to the help articles or the documentations to find out the considerations. But yeah, all the custom objects and most of the standard objects are supported. Now, you are aware of how the prediction builder works. in the background, and you think that you might have a use case that will benefit from these kind of models, and offset some of the tasks that you might have been doing manually. And but before you embark on a journey to have prediction builder implemented within an org, there are a few considerations or a few questions you should ask before you start, because it is important that you are sure that the model that you're build is going to solve the problems that your org is facing, or address the use cases that you have for your org. And at the same time, it is being used properly and it is being used at all, basically. So you have to be sure that the key executives, the main decision makers, are you know aware of what AI is, and are already do believe in the power of AI, and they really believe that it can definitely drive revenue, and you know drive some of the business processes, and believe in it in the first place. And also the use case that you are finalizing on, and that you are selecting, that should be a very clear cut use case, and it should have some sponsors who are going to make sure that it is adopted, and look at it in a way that can actually communicate the ROI that it provides, so that even the stakeholders are aware of how this is benefiting the business. And also this the third point is about the data. So is your data ready for predictive analysis? Now it is the third point, but it is the most important point. So unless you have the right kind of data that you will have the model learn from, you are not going to get the most out of the prediction builder, because again it is just a set of mathematical equations, and it all depends on the data that you feed to the model. So the output is really going to depend on the data that you feed to the model. So it is very important that you're aware of what kind of data you have, whether it is populated enough, people are actually putting the data that you want into that object, and enough data points are already there so that you can utilize it in your model and things like that. And you can once you have made sure that these 3 points are covered, then you can look at what kind of outcome your model is going to get you know get to your businesses. Basically, are you what is the main use case? Are you trying to reduce churn? Are you trying to maximize your revenue? Things like that. So you have to be very mindful about the what is the key outcome that you're trying to maximize or minimize or predict. And also you yourself should be confident enough that these insights and these AI outputs are really helping you deliver the value you wanted to your business. So once you have been sure about these things, you can definitely start digging into your use case about what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Like, let's say for example, if I go into the demo that we are going to give, like let's say let's say if we have a problem like I want to automatically know the propensity of a person to buy this product, then or if I want to, what do I want to find out, like one of the problems that bank, let's say for example a bank can face is, can we automatically know whether this person is likely to get a loan or not? These are the kind of problems that you have to narrow down upon, zero in upon, that are relevant and that can be addressed by prediction builder. And then you have to find out like what if I have decided upon the problem that I'm trying to solve, what kind of data do I have? So if I have a data that has our outcome variables as true or false or ones and zeros, then we know that we have to go with logistic regression or binary classification. Or if we have data that is continuous, then yeah, I know that I have to go with linear regression, things like that. And yeah, so you have to be sure about what kind of data that you are being using to build that model. And also, once that model is built, how are you going to utilize the outcome of that model? So now the outcome is just going to be a prediction, but how is this going to fit into your business processes? Where exactly will you surface these insights? So there are a number of ways in which you can utilize the output of these models. You can put it into a you can put it into a component that can be shown on a page, or it can be a part of a formula field, or it can be a part of it can be used in flows to drive some decisions. It can be used in next best action to uh, you know uh, help the end users get direction into what to do next, things like that. So you need to be very sure about how you are going to actually use the outcome of this model, and where exactly in your business process do these outcomes fit in. And also, the last thing is, once you have a model, and you know you have y- created a model, you have implemented it, you have put it into a process. Now you also want to be sure that you are able to showcase the ROI of that. You need to measure whether this has been successful or not. How have the end users been using this output? Has it really been effective in helping them make better decisions, or you know give them direction into what they're going to do next? So these are some of the considerations. Now, as I have been on and on about the data that we are using to build the model, now there are a few terminologies that you need to be aware of. So data set is going to be the object, basically, that data that we are going to give to the model to train upon. So within that data, now, if we are talking about an object, that object will have data since the inception of that object till now, and that can be a lot of years. And the your business processes, and uh, your clients, or your end users, everything might have changed over time. So you need to be sure about what data you're using. If you're using a data, what part of that data you would be using to train the model. You can think of the model as a 5-year old. You are giving it data, basically that means you are teaching it, and how you teach that 5-year old will determine how that model grows up and matures to actually give you the output that you wanted. So it's very important to be very mindful about what kind of data that you are giving to your model, and that that is directly uh, that that will come as a direct output of how that model behaves in real life, basically. So also, you can segment the data to only use the data that is really relevant to your use case. Also, example set and prediction set is just the you know uh, uh, basically the split that we did, test and train split. It is very similar to that. So these are things that you will definitely see in the demo that is going to follow, and you would have better understanding of where all of that information that I've been giving you right now is going to fit in. You are going to see these uh, terminologies in the UI when we are actually going through that demo. And I cannot impress enough upon you the importance of having complete data and the right data, because it is the only thing that you have control over. You have you have very limited control over how prediction builder is going to learn from the data that you're giving to it, because it's just a set of linear algebra. It's mathematics. What you determine is the data that you're feeding it. So you better be sure that the data that you're feeding it is representative of the the process that you are trying to learn from. And it is you are not giving the data that has some things that you do not want to be repeated, and some things that you do not want the model to learn from, basically. So I'll jump on to a demo so that we can understand how it is happening in real life. So within Einstein and setup, you would have a prediction builder. You can go into Einstein prediction builder, and enable it first. So this is a it is a new org basically. So you have to activate Einstein Prediction Builder, and that's where it will activate the feature for you. All right. So uh, this feature has been activated, and yes, you can see that you can start building a new prediction. Now, before I jump into it, I'll just give you a brief about what data that we are going to learn on, and what kind of data it is basically. So it is our example here is loan applications. Basically, will a loan application be approved or not? And what is the likelihood of the loan to be predicted, a loan to be approved basically. So here we have a history of all the loan applications that we have received in the past, and what the outcome of that loan application basically, did we give the did we approve the loan or did we not approve the loan basically. So a lot of things like their property, their collateral, their credit scores, and things like that. So we have a lot of data about the person who's applying for that loan, and then we use that data to train a model, and that model will help us determine whether a new application that we receive, whether that application is going to be approved or not. And if we have an application that is likely to be approved, then we want to fast track that. So this is our training data and this is our test data basically. So these are in progress loans, and we want to find out whether these are going to be approved or not. So this is basic about what our example is. And let's jump on to prediction builder. So we click on new prediction, and we just give it a name. So this is going to be the label of the model that you would see. And you show prediction builder which object houses the data that you wanted to learn from. And yeah, so here is your segmentation basically. So here, if you remember, we talked about segmentation. So in segmentation, as I said, you can either, if you are sure that the data that you have within your object, if that is all relevant and that is still uh, relevant to your business, you can just move ahead with no segmentation. But if you think that you only want to focus upon a subset of the data that is hosted within your object, then you can set some filters to narrow down upon the data that you want to train the model on. And that's where you can set multiple filter criteria to actually present only the data that you want the model to learn from, and then proceed with the training basically. Now here in this example, just to keep things simple, I'll progress with no segment. And on the right, you would be able to see a few things that will help you along the way to make sure that the steps that you're taking are really right. So here you have a data checker, which is a very handy thing. It will first check whether we have enough data within that object or within the segment that we have specified. If we have, so we have a 400 minimum basically. So do we have enough data to fruitfully train that model and get reliable insights out of it? And if it gives you a green signal, that means yeah, you have enough data to actually build the model on. And it will also show you which object you have selected. And on the right, you have this thing, this tab called Trusted AI, which gives you basic things of introduces you to the concept of bias. So uh, in the AI community, basically there is a lot of interest, or you would say a lot of awareness going on right now about transparency, and also about the inherent biases in your data that can that can affect the output of your model. Now if as a business you are going to if you're going to rely upon some models, and in the underlying scheme of things, if the model has learnt upon some of the fields that can introduce some bias, basically by bias I mean uh, has your model learned from sensitive things that you don't have control over, like age, sex, or your your marital status, your economic background, things like that. You do not want your model to learn from things like that and affect the prediction of your model, because your model is going to be used in production, it is going to affect real lives. So you want to be sure that the output of the model is devoid of these things, and such fields have not been used within your training data, so that you are sure that whatever your output of the model is, it is not inherently introducing bias into your predictions, and therefore into your decisions that you're taking as a result of that model. Now, this is where you make that distinction. So you remember linear and logistic regression. This is where you specify whether the what kind of data we are going to learn from, whether it is going to be yes or no question, or is it going to be a continuous variable, a number. So in this example, as we understand that we have an example of loan applications where they have either been rejected or otherwise. So we'll select yes and no and proceed. And also so there can be, so here it is a very simple example where we already might have a field within our object that will tell us whether the outcome is what we wanted it to be. But life is not so simple always, so there can be some examples where you might not have one field that will help you determine whether this is a positive example or a negative example, right? So in that case, you can always use filter conditions to specify which set of records basis on that filter conditions are your examples of positive interactions ones basically, and which ones are negative interactions zeros basically. So here we, as we already have a field, we will be using that field option. And in this example, in this step, you give it a prediction set. So basically, you are going to define, you know, what what fields that you are going to use, and uh, basically positive and negative examples. It is not enough to just point it to what what field that you're going to use. You also want to show it that some examples yeah, so you want to show the model what exactly your positive examples and negative examples are, so that it can learn from it. All right, so let me just check. All right, so here you can see that we have got we are in the place where we determine what the positive and negative examples are, and let's just show what our positive examples are going to be. So right now we are giving it positive examples. Stage should equal approved. So if our loan application is approved, that is a positive example for us. And a negative example is again going to be a straightforward thing. Decline, it is going to be our negative examples. Yeah. And now also you might be aware that we are actually doing everything on this object. So when we are eventually going to deploy this prediction, do we want the prediction to be displayed on the data that we have used to train the model on? Basically, this is where you determine that. So as you might be aware that the model generalizes things. So it is going to learn from the data that you trained the model on, but it is not going to remember basically it is going to learn. It is not going to memorize what you taught it basically. So if even if you use the same record as a part of the training data and then you apply the model on that same record, it is not always going to be the case that the output is going to be exactly what you trained it to be. It is generalizing from your data. So that's where you want to be, here is where you can make the distinction whether you want to actually score the records that are within your example set or not. And here in the data checker, you can just check whether you have enough examples for yeses and enough examples for no. And you want to make sure that when you are, setting some examples, there is, and you are setting some filters to show the model the examples, there is no overlap. So the records cannot be a part of both yes and no. They have to be mutually exclusive. So here is where you can see that, yeah, you are sure that there is no intersection. So you have all green. You can go ahead with this. And this is where you would be able to, select what fields within your object you're going to let the model build upon. So basically here is where you can exclude the fields. So if you remember our discussion about bias and hindsight bias, so hindsight bias is basically the fields that might not be present at the time of scoring. Because let's say for example, uh, if let's say uh, in this particular example, for example, let's say a loan application. So if you apply for a loan, you only get to know your annual percentage rate, or basically your interest rate, until you have been approved, right? So if your object has a field called interest rate, and while that interest rate might be populated for your training data because it has reached a terminal state, by terminal state I mean it has been approved. So in a previous example we showed it as a yes example. Yes examples shows stage as approved, and if the stage is approved, then obviously you might have a uh, interest rate field that contains interest rate, and the model will think that it is a very simple thing. Yeah, I can take the amount, the rate from this field, and if the field is not empty, that means, yeah, there is a good chance that this will be approved basically. But that field is not going to be updated if the loan is still in progress, right? If the application is still open, then that field is never going to be there. And if you're trying to your model will expect that field to be updated, and it will give it a weightage basically. And if it's not able to get that information, then the model is not going to perform well. So you want to avoid hindsight bias. You want to avoid fields that might not be present at the time of scoring basically. And also you want to exclude things that will introduce bias into your model, things like age and um, other things basically. So here is where you can select the fields that you want the model to learn from, and you proceed. You uh, when the model the output of this model will be uh, stored into a field that is added programmatically into your object. And that's where the output of this prediction is going to be stored. So you can give it a name, and it will automatically populate a API name. And you can also for better understanding and more explainability or more transparency, show on the record itself which fields contributed most to the output that you are seeing on the record. So here is where you can actually use this toggle to determine whether you want to actually show this to the end users or not. Do you want the end users to be aware of what exactly uh, has been contributing the most to the output that we are eventually seeing on the record? So these are all the considerations that went into the setting up the model. Basically, it was just a bunch of questions about your data, and nothing much about how it is going to learn from it, right? So here you have, if you have already done your homework and determined what you're going to do with it, you have, given the model, given prediction builder all the information it requires to learn from your data, and you can see a summary of all the decisions that you have made in the previous fields in this wizard here. So basically, what object, what are the prediction fields, what fields are you going to use, and where is the output going to be shown, and will the top predictors be shown or not, and things like that. You also checked whether all the data that the prediction builder wants, do you have a green signal to go ahead? And yes, if it shows you yes, you can proceed, and it will start learning from the data and build a model and automatically surface some outputs. So depending on the size of the data, basically the number of records within an object, it might take from 5 minutes to an hour or more. And basically the model will learn from all the data that is there. And once it's ready, you will get a notification that yes, your prediction is ready for review, and you can look at the scorecard, and if you're okay with what the prediction is, you can enable that prediction. So your enabled prediction will become one, and the output will start appearing on the record, which is our loan, basically loan object basically. So let us just give it some time. I'm not sure about, so it's already close to 5. um uh, let's give it some more time, and if it starts, if it's done training, then we can explore what the scorecard looks like, and we'll take it from there. In the meantime, let me check. So since we only had 5,000 records, I'm hoping that this will, get done very soon, and we should be able to look at the output in no time. All right, it seems to be taking its own sweet time. Let's just give it some space and not bother it much. Uh, just for the sake of time, I have another org that already has this implemented, and we can just in the meantime look at how the output will actually look like. So in loans in progress, we'll go to such examples, and in this record, basically just check. All right, let's just wait for this model to complete. Then demo gods are not with me today, I guess. Let me try another org. Yeah, in the meantime, I'll just check whether we have many questions, and Okay, so we have a question about random forest. We have random forest that is within Discovery, and uh, yeah, random forest and XGBoost are a part of Einstein Discovery. It comes with Tableau CRM plus licenses. Um, can it work on big objects? Not really sure about that. I'll look this up and get back to you, Rajashandra. Chandrasekhar Sai Dominati asks if we are applying predictions on parent object, will it be application to child objects as well? So that's a good question. Basically, so with child objects, you really want to, so as I said before, it can only be on a single object. So if you have child objects, you can have some roll-up fields or formula fields, or you can even have some flows iterating through all the child objects and getting the metrics that you want to train the model on within the record itself, and then you can use that object to train your model and get the insight that you want. And Raja has some, yeah, exactly, Raja. That's exactly what I meant. Niche thinks that based on the prediction score on parent, you may take action on the child or depend on use case relationship. Okay. Can we use all data types? Ask Upadaleti. By data types, yeah. So basically, it can be. See, so in this slide, if you remember what kind of fields it can have, you know, uh, it can, yeah, it does have. Basically, I don't think there would be an example where it would not support one of the fields that we already have on our object. So most of the fields that we have on our object will be able to utilized for prediction builder, basically. Is Einstein prediction available by default, or we have to enable it manually? Yes, we just saw at the start that it is there, but you have to enable it manually if you want to start using it. And yeah, you don't need to get any licenses or anything for that. You already have that free of cost within your prediction builder and recommendation builder both working the similar manner, and I'm able to get the difference between them. All right, that's a great question, Asmita. Einstein recommendation builder is is a new offering by Salesforce, and uh, it is very similar. It does require three objects basically. So now with prediction builder, you only work on one object. With Einstein recommendation builder, you need three objects. Basically, you have the target, and basically you have one object that should be the target, one should be what you are trying to recommend to the target, and the middle object should be a junction object which should which should store the interaction between the target and the recommended object basically. And if you have that, and also, yeah, so that also has another implication basically. So for prediction builder, we use logistic regression and linear regression. So that is model. For Einstein recommendation builder, you have a totally different set of models called a priori algorithms, or it also uses content based filterings. So these are totally different types of models basically. So these products are really different. uh, it is applicable for numeric fields and formula fields, I think. Yeah, developer, it is available for developer editions. I'm using a developer edition right now to do this demo. So yes, you would be able to take it for a spin, Shweta. um, Chandrasekhar asks, will focus on segments work like records that meet criteria? Yes, you are setting up filter based criteria to determine which object sets you are going to use. Let me just check whether our recommendation is ready or not. Yeah, it is going to take its time. Shilpi asks how to choose one or more objects together. You can only work on one object, as I said. So uh, you want all the data that you want to the model to train from available within a record within that object. Predict on Sanyam Jain ask, predicting on Salesforce object is different from prediction on dataset. Yes, and again, Einstein Prediction Builder can is built on Salesforce Core, and dataset is built on Einstein Discovery, and the basically our objects are more like RDBMS. It is just a table with a lot of data, but in Einstein Discovery you have got columnar databases, basically things like you can think of it as similar as document stores or Redis basically. So the architecture of how the data is stored is totally different. It is a key-based storage for data sets, and you really use prediction builder with data sets. You will have to use Einstein Discovery for that. Um, uh, is a prediction builder paid service? Yes, it can be. In the previous slide, we talked about the license consideration. This Try Einstein is free. You have Einstein Predictions and WCRM Plus that are paid. You can always contact your AE and they would be able to guide you about the costings and things like that. Differences between reports and Einstein Prediction Builder, very, very different. Reports only expose you to the data that you already have, not learn from it. But Einstein Prediction Builder can learn from your data and give you predictions. Now, there is also, if you already have Einstein Discovery, then you might have a new feature within your reports to have, Einstein Insights, basically, where it will help you do create some stories and check what the difference between both of these model runs are. But that's a totally different concept, Nitish. Anish Padmanabhan asks, could you please provide some difference or use case where to use prediction versus opportunity score in a Sales Cloud scenario? Opportunity scoring is again similar to Einstein Prediction Builder, but since the opportunity is a standard object and that Salesforce team has already, built a solution that is very custom for this niche use case. And also I think opportunity scoring, you can lead scoring and opportunity scoring, you can also include custom fields as well, but not and it also depends on a lot of standard fields. So it is very similar, but it is not as customizable as prediction builder. With prediction builder you're starting from scratch. With opportunity score in Sales Cloud Einstein, you already have things done for you, like almost 70-80% of things done for you. You just customize it some and just use it out of the box. So similar but different. Yes, Einstein Prediction Builder is not coming on quick find. Einstein AI is showing up. Adityan, I'm not sure why that is the case. Um, uh, it should definitely come into your org. Maybe we can connect offline and try and figure out why that is. What is the default field level security used for calculating the score? Field level security. There is so basically there is no consideration for field level security here. You need to be an admin with show all data, modify all data to start working on prediction builder. So it is basically learning from all the data, right? And when somebody is when an end user is consuming this output, they will be only able to access the records they have access to. So and that model is only going to get the fields from the the model is just a set of, it's just an equation. It is an equation with pre-calculated weightages, right? So it will just pick up the fields that from the object that you're on at that point and calculate the outcome for you. So it's not really the concept of field level security is not going to hinder the actual use of this. Basically that's what I think. If you want to deploy a newly created prediction and hierarchy, what approach do we need to follow? uh, in hierarchy, Chandrasekhar, I'm not really sure about what you are referring to by hierarchy, but if you care to, put in an explanation for that in the chat, I'd be happy to pick that up. Anish asks, I think it should be read access for analytics user. Yeah, read only access, I think. Yeah. Let me check whether it is done. Please be done. And you're done. Amazing. All right, so here we can see that the model is ready for review. We want to look at what the scorecard is, and if we think that it is good enough, we can go ahead with this. So here in the scorecard, there are a few tabs that are exposed to you. I'll quickly go through this because we only have limited time. I've already shot over the time by 12 minutes. So this is basically a summary of whatever you had selections you had actually made in the wizard, and this is your prediction quality. This is your AUC score. Basically, this is your AUROC. Basically, it is area under the ROC curve, which is a concept, which is a statistical concept. Basically, what you need to make sure is they have given you a very good indication by color coding. Basically, 100 or 95 to 100 is too good to be true. What it means is basically your model is overfit. It has totally memorized whatever you had learned, given the model to learn from. So it's not going to scale. It is not going to scale across the new data that you're going to expose this model to. So basically, in case you make a new record, this prediction will not be really relevant because it is good for only the training data, which is not really good for anyone basically. So it has to be generalized well. So 75 to 90, 75, 78 to 95 is generally a good range. And also 50% is like a coin toss. It's anybody's guess basically. So that even then the model is not that good. So if it's in the green, and even in the green, like let's say if even if it's a green, uh, the answer or the actual answer whether this prediction is any good is always going to be determined by the business users basically. So does the prediction make any sense for your business users, right? So there might be your business users that have been working in the system for quite a while, and does this outcome and the underlying, the underlying recommend, basically the top predictors, do they make sense to the business or not? If it makes sense to the business, then the model is good. If it does not, then regardless of how high your score is, that model is not good, right? So you would not be able to deploy it into production. And here you have a list of top predictors that that determine what the output is going to be, and this is your distribution of result. So if you remember that our threshold concept that we discussed here we are, you know uh, setting a threshold at which point we want to distinguish the outcome, if it's a 0 or 1. This is where you would be able to make that. So right now it's at 50%, very similar to what we have here, but you can always, decrease it or increase it according to your use case, and it will, so this is your predicted correctly and predicted incorrectly, very similar to the confusion metrics that we have, right? So it was 1 and it was predicted as 1, and it was 0 and predicted as 0. So these two are your predicted correctly. There you can see here that, yeah, whether it has been predicted, yes, and it was actually predicted, things like that. So you can always play around with this threshold and decide upon a threshold that really makes sense to you as per your business, and you can just deploy the model at that threshold. This is a very detailed list of all the fields that you had selected for training, and what effect these fields have upon the final outcome. Here is all the fields that you had selected for training, and it will just give you a gist of what kind of data is contained within those fields, so that you can, if you have some questions about the field here, you can always go to this tab and find more about that field and what kind of data it contains, and then make a decision about whether you want to utilize that field in your prediction builder or not basically. So you can reiterate, you can make multiple versions of that model by including or excluding more fields, and improving that you see here basically. And this is again the summary of all the selections that you have made, and this is what your model looks like. So you can always, if you are good, you're happy with this model, you can you know uh, enable this prediction, and it will, as a result, start scoring your records, and those records will start showing what the outcome of that model is. Right. In interest of time, basically this is a ready-made component which is a part of your page builder, basically. So you would be able to drag and drop this component and just point it to the prediction that you have just built, and it will start showing what the outcome of your model is, what the top predictors are, basically why it is predicting this. So basically, it is affected by credit score and broker status and what the interest rate and things like that. So these are all the fields that are majorly contributing to this score, and it is shown here. And this score is again available within your formula fields, within your API, within your flows and things like that. So you can actually go to town with it and use it in any way you want. So I'll wrap up with that. I have already shot over by 18 minutes. Thank you very much for your continued patience, and I think I have answered most of the questions, so I think we are good with that. Uh, thank you very much for patiently listening through this. And over to you, Sagar.
Thanks a lot, Prabhat. It was an interesting session. Maybe all people enjoyed it. So if anyone have any questions, just ping us on the chat, or maybe you can just drop an email to us. We'll just take it ahead with Prabhat. Over to you, Manasvi.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhat, for such an insightful session. The session was indeed full of learnings and knowledge, which will definitely help one. So we are grateful and thank you once again. And let's begin with the quest session now. I hand it over to Sagar for the quest session.
Thanks, Manasvi. I'm just sharing my screen. Just let me know once it is visible.
Sure, Sagar.
So is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, Sagar, your screen is visible.
Okay, so let's get started with the quiz session. There are total 5 questions, and out of which you just need to click on that particular Google URL www.kahoot.it, and then just need to just type the pin, that is 3161647. Manasvi, just paste it on that particular chat also,
Yes, sure.
and then it will ask us about that particular team name. Just mention team name, and then the next it will ask us about the names. Just mention it any one name, or you can just mention 3 names also, that is fine. I can see people are joining. 5 people joined: Chirag, Naluri, Pavan, Rashmi, Anish, Kunal. Okay, okay, I can see 14 people joined yet: Priyanka, Chirag, Kunal, RCB, Saurabh, Pavan, Kalyan, Nimisha, Sanket. Okay, okay, 31, 32 people joined. We'll just wait for 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll start. Chirag, Rahul, Rashmi, Priyanka, Saurabh, Vedant, Sai, Rohit, Vedali, Rafael, RCB. Okay, 44. So you just need to mention that particular pin name 3161647, and then you can just mention the team name, and after mentioning the team name it will ask you one more time about the names. You can just mention your name and then just log it into that. Okay, 48. Okay, we will just start in one more minute. Smriti, Nilesh, Pratyusha, Shweta, Pooja, Surbhi, Ayushi. Okay, one more last minute. 59. Okay, let's get started. So here is the first question displayed on the screen. What is the minimum number of negative example provided for training model? 200, 400, 100, and 500. I can see 20, 25, 28, 32, 35. Okay, okay. I guess most of the people answered the question. Okay. So the correct answer is 100. Let's see who is on the scoreboard. I can see Kapil is on the top. After that, Sri Kalyan is there, and then Vedant is there. Okay, so next question. How many prediction can you activate for free? 1, 10, 5, no limit apply. I can see most of the people have answered the question. Let's just finish the timer and then we'll see the correct answer. So the correct answer is 1. Let's see the scoreboard. Sri Kalyan is on the top. Vedant is on the second. Kunal is on the third. And fourth is RCB. Chirag Jain is fifth. Let's go to the third question. It's a true false. Can prediction builder use AI to recommend which product to offer to the customer? True and false. I see. Okay. I guess most of the people have answered the question. Okay, correct answer is false. Just we can see the scoreboard. Okay, Chirag is on the top, Kunal is on the second, third is Krishanti, fourth is Rahul, fifth is Karthik. Okay, coming to the next question. When building a model for numerical prediction, which statistical process is used? Binary classification, ridge regression, logistic regression, linear regression. I can see most of the people have answered the question. 57, 58, 59. One more. Okay, I guess most of the people have answered the question. Yep. So the correct answer is linear regression. Let's see the scoreboard. Again, the same. Chirag Jain is on the top. Again, second is Kunal. Third is Krishanti. Fourth is Rahul. Fifth is Karthik. Good going, peoples. Okay, next question. This is the last question. Name of the out-of-the-box component to display the result of the model is Einstein Discovery, Einstein Prediction, Tableau CRM Insight, Crystal Ball. I can see most of the people have answered the question. Let's see the correct answer. Einstein Prediction is the correct answer, and 37 people have correct answer. Let's see the podium and the high score. Third is Rahul. Second, we have Kunal. First, we have Chirag. Thanks, everyone for joining this session. Congratulations to all the three winners, Chirag, Kunal, and Rahul. You can just mention your email ID on the chat. We will take it ahead, and then you will get a certification voucher on your email ID. And once you receive that particular certification voucher, just mention on that particular LinkedIn or Twitter with Trailblazer community groups, Nasik and Khandwa. Thanks, Prabhat, for an interesting session. Thanks a lot, team. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining this session. Thanks. Bye bye. We'll just wait for email ID of the peoples.
I request the winners to please put up their email IDs in the chat box so that we can send the certification voucher on your respective email IDs.
So we have email ID of Chirag, we have email ID of Kunal. Okay, we have 3 ID with us. Let's note down all this. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining this session. Thanks a lot. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Prabhat.